What's good, yo? Welcome back to another video. Today we'll be going over wide receiver prospects that the Texans could target or should target in the NFL draft. And before we start, I just want to remind you that we will be having a live stream for the NFL draft starting tomorrow at 6:45 p.m. And all of y'all are invited to join. And you can be a fan of any team, really. You don't have to be a Texans fan. You can just hop on. And even though we don't have a first or second round pick, it'll still be fun to see what other teams get and see how that affects us in a way. And who knows, we might get a sneaky trade up by Nick Caserio. But yeah, go ahead and if you're interested, DM us at Clutch City ENTX, and we'll add you to a group chat, and then you can go ahead and join the live stream. All right, so without further ado, let's get started with our wide receiver draft prospects video. So our first wide receiver we'll be talking about is Amon St. Brown from USC. He's 5'11 and a half and 197 pounds. And his draft grade is projected to be at second or third round. And he won some awards. He was an honorable mention for all Pac-12 selection and a junior All-American and first team All-State in 2016. And some stats for y'all. So in 2020, he played 6 games. He had 41 receptions, 478 yards, which is around 11.7 yards per reception, and he had 7 touchdowns. So what are your instant thoughts about Amon St. Brown?
So yeah, Amon St. Brown is my favorite receiver that the Texans could possibly get, with currently picking at pick 67. I feel like he's the best route runner out of all the ones available. He's very agile. He has very impressive hands. And with his impressive hands, he was very effective in the red zone. And I feel like he's able to move all around the field, playing outside and slot. And while we desperately need a wide receiver number 2, he would be able to fill that role.
Yeah, he's been kind of like some analysts have been saying that he does have some average foot quickness, but he does have a nice release and does show a lot of kind of refined as a route runner. But he's kind of inconsistent with getting vertical separation and but he does have above average like body control. So he is a very enticing prospect that I would love for us to take a chance on. And there's also some other pros that he's had. He's seen as an instinctive, talented deep ball tracker and a guy who has smooth acceleration in his routes. So I think he would be a great pick for us, even if I know a lot of people have been expecting us to pick a secondary with their first pick, but if we got Amon St. Brown at 67, I'd be very happy with that. All right, so the next prospect that we're going to go over is Nico Collins from Michigan. He's 6'4", 215 pounds, and he is projected to go in rounds 2 to 3. And some awards that he won Michigan's Most Improved Player on Offense. Big Ten coaches voted him for honorable mention all conference, and he was Michigan's Offensive Player of the Year in 2019, but he did opt out of the 2020 season. So based on those, we're gonna give his 2019 stats. In 12 games, he had 37 receptions with 729 yards, so 19.7 yards per reception. That's really shows his big yards per receptions ability. Could be that deep threat that we kind of missed with Will Fuller. And he had 7 touchdowns as well. So what do you think about Nico Collins?
The first thing you see about Nico Collins is that he's 6'4". He'd be a lot different from Brandon Cooks, who's our number 1 receiver at the moment, and Nico Collins could potentially be that receiver number 2. And while Brandon Cooks would be drawing all the defenders off of his speed, Nico Collins can use his large frame to make big plays. And one thing I noticed with Nico Collins, the first thing I hear about him is his hardworking character. He's very humble. He's earned every opportunity that he's gotten. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of the draft, so he's always been very, very talented. And he was always pretty productive at Michigan, and it would be a great red zone threat, as well as we see from lots of the other receivers. I really love the kind of deep ball trace that he has. Great, the high type catch point, and can get those jump balls.
Yeah, and this is what a personal executive for an NFC team said about him. He said, "I would take him in the 3rd round, but I just couldn't bite before that. We need someone who can get those intermediate catches, and I'm just not convinced he can get enough separation." So that's what some personal executive for an NFC team said about Nico Collins, but it seems that Nico Collins is very good with 50-50 balls. He's unfazed by physical contact through the catch, and like you said, competitive with jump ball traits and really intuitive late separation talent. So there's cons with every prospect, of course, but I really like what Nico Collins does bring to the table. All right, so the next prospect that we're going to go over is Cornell Powell. from Clemson, 6 foot, 204 pounds, and is projected to be from rounds three to four. And I feel like at this point, kind of feels like a Texan because like how many times Texans fans have mocked him like in the later rounds. But just some stuff about Cornell Powell information. So Powell was a top 50 prospect coming out of Greenville, North Carolina, but he struggled during his first 4 years on campus to get playing time ahead of talented pass catchers like Mike Williams, T. Higgins, Justin Ross, Hunter Renfro, and among others. And but he did play well enough to earn third-team All ACC honors. And yeah, so here's some stats in his 2020 season. In 12 games, he had 53 receptions, 882 yards, 16.6 yards per reception, and 7 touchdowns. So what do you think about Cornell Powell?
Yeah, like you say, he's a big fan favorite among Texans fans, maybe because of his Clemson connection, but he's also a very gritty player. Only at 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, he's a fantastic blocking receiver, very physical. He flashes a lot of speed. The one thing he lacks is definitely his consistency. He doesn't get open all the time. He doesn't have the elite route running. He doesn't have the elite hands that we like to talk about. While he has some traits, he doesn't have the elite traits that put him in the second and third and first round. But I think that'd be an absolute steal coming out of like the 5th or 6th round for Cornell Powell. And I think the Texans kind of building a new culture, bringing in young guys that are gritty, hardworking is exactly what we need.
Yeah, I really like the interviews Cornell Powell has been in, and some analysts say that at worst he'll be an NFL backup. So that means he has a pretty high ceiling, in a sense, because it's kind of hard to get a roster position in the NFL. Just so like anyone who is in the NFL is pretty talented in its own regard. So I think Cornell Powell, I really like what I've seen from him just in his film, and some stuff about him. He has good hand-eye coordination through noisy catch points and will go get the football where it's thrown. So I think he's good at kind of improvising. I feel like a lot of people have been kind of claiming him to be the next DeAndre Hopkins. I think someone said that in our last live stream. But like I know that's kind of high expectations for a guy coming out of college, but he could be good. Like there's a lot of things to like about Cornell Powell, and but some things that he does lack are below average separation burst, and he doesn't really like sell like where he's going as well with his route running. So that could be something that needs to be polished. But yeah, he's definitely an intriguing prospect. All right, so the next guy we're going to be talking about is Diami Brown from North Carolina, 6'1", 189 pounds. And he's projected to go in round 3. And some awards that he's won is he's won a third-team All-ACC honors in 2019 and third-team Associated Press All-American and first-team All-ACC status in 2020. And here's some stats about him. So in 2020, he played 6 games with 41 receptions, 478 yards, 11.7 yards per reception, and he had 7 touchdowns. So what do you think about Diami Brown?
Diami Brown is one of the best deep threats in the draft this season. He's really good at his route running, his hands on the deep passes, kind of getting over the cornerbacks at the high catch point, like I mentioned a couple of times now. But the deep threat is kind of really all he does. He's not necessarily good at getting separation. He doesn't really have a great motive. And that's exactly why you're only seeing him in the 4th or 3rd round at this point in the draft. He's missing some things, but I think with a deep threat like him, you can always polish that up, get some good coaching in him, and then you can kind of round out the rest of his game. But definitely one of the best deep threats in the entire draft.
Yeah, some other stuff about him is just that he doesn't really display trustworthy hands, and in like the kind of go big or go home kind of offense that North Carolina runs. So it kind of like didn't really like have a really like that, those kinds of systems you don't really know how well like they are in other areas, like you kind of mentioned. So he does need to like work on those other areas, like those intermediate areas and short areas. But yeah, he does also need to work on, he is a little thin, but he has good length and excellent ball tracking talent. So and he is pretty good with getting jump ball opportunities, and he builds a lot of vertical separation downfield. So that's what he's good at, that deep ball specialist. So another like a Will Fuller replacement, if you will. But yeah, he could be really good. I mean, Will Fuller also had those untrustworthy hands coming out, but he ended up fixing that. So if those things are coachable, then by all means, go ahead and get Diami Brown. All right, so the next person we're going to go talk about is Dwayne Eskridge from Western Michigan. He's 5'9", 190 pounds. And he's projected to go in round 3. And some awards that he's won in high school, he actually won honorable mention All-State as running back in his senior year. And in 2019, he did have a clavicle injury in 2019, but in 2020, he won the MAC Special Teams Player of the Year. So some stats about him in 2020. In 6 games, he had 33 receptions, 768 yards, 23.3 yards per reception, and he had 8 touchdowns. So what do you think about Dwayne Eskridge?
He's definitely one of the fastest receivers in the entire draft. At only 5'9", he's not the kind of guy you're going to see on the outside, which is typically what the Texans should be looking for at this point. But it doesn't mean he's a non-talented wide receiver. He's very fast, kind of guy you want to get the ball in his hands. At Western Michigan, he had a lot of experience at punt returning and kick returning, but his size does limit him. I feel like he's the kind of guy where you put him in motion, throw little screens to him, and kind of use his speed to your advantage. And I feel like if the Texans get his hands on, they can definitely use his attributes to their advantage.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, he does have experience as a running back, so he could be that kind of gadget player we could incorporate in our offense, and he could be a pretty good kick returner. As I mentioned, he did win a Special Teams Player of the Year in 2020, and so there's a lot of, obviously, there's so many things to like about Dwayne Eskridge. He has crisp angles. He has full extension to make a high point catch. Those are the things that are really good to see coming out of a guy from college. That kind of refined thing, but he doesn't have great route running, but he is good like when it comes to obviously catching the ball. But some analysts do say that he struggles with contested catches, but like I said, getting full extension to make that high point catch is something that you really like to see. And but he does have good tempo through the route, but some weaknesses like you've mentioned. He does have a drop rate, and that has been an issue for him. But yeah, I really like Dwayne Eskridge as well, and wouldn't mind to see him in the 3rd round. All right, so the next guy we're going to be talking about is Tylan Wallace from OSU. He's 5'11", 194 pounds, and he's projected to go in the 4th round. And some awards about him: he garnered the 2nd team Associated Press All-American and 1st team All Big 12 honors, and he was also a finalist for the Biletnikoff Award, which is a top wide receiver award in 2018. He was 2nd team All Big 12 and shared the Cowboys' Most Outstanding Offensive Player award in 2019. And he also got a 1st team All Big 12 honors. And so NFL assistant coach said this about Tylan Wallace, that he will be the next Steve Smith, and he has that same kind of competitor that like Steve Smith, and he has the same kind of jump ball skills. And and he does have an injury history. He did tear his ACL in October 2019. And some stats in 2020, he played 10 games. He had 59 receptions, 922 yards, and 15.6 yards per reception, and 6 touchdowns. So what do you think about Tylan Wallace?
Tylan Wallace, like you said, was one of the best receivers in college football this past season. He's always been the number 1 option at Oklahoma State. Very competitive, one of the leaders of the team. And he, unlike most of the receivers in the draft, actually does a little bit of everything. He has really good route running, really solid hands, and we're talking hands in the deep balls in the short game. But those traits are kind of what the Texans need at the moment. We have different kind of receivers. We have our slot receivers in Coutinho and Cobb. We have Brandon Cooks as our deep threat. And Tylan Wallace could mix in a little bit of everything. And I'm not really sure why he's falling and been kind of going under the radar. And I really hope that we could be able to snag him in the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy who was projected to go higher, but obviously that injury history in 2019, which, I mean, he's a year removed from it, and he did show that he can produce after the injury. So I don't think that should have been an issue for why he's falling. But anyway, so there's on top of the things that you mentioned, he makes himself like a easy target for quarterbacks, and he's very physical against physical coverage. And like I mentioned earlier, he's a competitor and plays bigger than his size. That's what you like to see, really aggressive guys who really want to play hard every single time. But so yeah, that's what I like to see. But some weaknesses is that he didn't see NFL caliber coverage in his conference often, so that is an issue. And he does have shorter arms as a wide receiver. But those are just a few of his weaknesses. But he's very pretty good. He does win downfield jump balls, so I think he will, with that competitive nature, he will be a pretty good target for us, maybe around 4, maybe later or whatnot. So I would definitely love Tylan Wallace. And our next prospect we're going to be talking about is Daz Newsome from North Carolina. He's 5'10", 190 pounds, and he's projected to go in the 7th round. And some awards that he's won in 2019, he got 2nd team All ACC honors and an honorable mention All Conference pick in 2020. And some stats about him is that in 2020, in 12 games, he had 54 receptions, 684 yards, 12.7 yards per reception, and 6 touchdowns. So what do you think about Daz Newsome?
And while we talked a little bit about North Carolina's offense a little earlier, about how they're go big or go home, Daz Newsome actually played the slot in that offense. He put up really big numbers. He has great hands, great ball skills, a very big competitor. Actually, he creates a lot more separation than you see from Diami Brown. In my opinion, I think he's better than his counterpart in North Carolina and Diami Brown. And he kind of goes a little under the radar. He was a starting slot receiver and punt returner at North Carolina. And I feel like all his traits mixed together with his experience in the deep game and in the slot can kind of help him in Houston.
Yeah, and some strengths about him is that he finds that top gear very quickly. So he does have that speed that you like to see. But some shortcomings that he does have are his short area footwork and his ability to alter his route speed. His route running, it seems a little unfocused, but his short area footwork and route speed can show some promise that he could improve his route running skills. And he's not seen as a natural hands catcher, so that may be something that can be coached in the future with our wide receiver coach in Robert Prince, and who's a pretty good wide receiver coach. And so hopefully he can get that fixed. And so, yeah, I definitely like what I see from Daz Newsome. Just listening from his interviews, seems like a very competitive guy. And yeah, so yeah. All right, so the last wide receiver prospect we're going to be talking about is one of my personal favorites, Josh Imatorbhebhe from Illinois. He's 6'2", 220 pounds, and he's predicted to go in the 7th round. And so some stats about him. In 2020, he played 7 games. He had 22 receptions, 297 yards, 13.5 yards per reception, and 3 touchdowns. And this is what a professional executive for an NFC team said. There are talented guys, and then there are just raw, pure athletes. And that is where he is right now. And this is one where you trust your wide receivers coach and what he thinks he can get out of him with more time. They usually know. So what do you think about Josh Imatorbhebhe?
He's kind of like that one executive mentioned. He's a physical beast. He's very, very athletic, and I think he has a lot of room to grow. He's kind of like a DK Metcalf in a way. I mean, DK Metcalf had that insane combine, those insane pictures of him looking really buff. But Josh Imatorbhebhe, in my opinion, the reason why he's in the 6th round is not his fault at all. I mean, yes, he is raw, but this is a very, very deep receiver class. You're gonna see guys fall. You're gonna see guys rise, and he's kind of just one of the guys that you really haven't heard of much. He's more of a developmental player at this time, but we have Robert Prince at our receiver coach, who coached guys like Kenny Golladay and other great receivers that the Lions have developed in the past, and that was all because of Robert Prince. And so I feel like we should have a lot of trust in Robert Prince in coaching Josh Imatorbhebhe because of his athleticism that he does possess. He can be that deep threat. He can have the ability to absolutely moss somebody and just physically abuse them on the deep routes. I feel like that's something that'll be really exciting to see. And I feel like in the 6th or 7th round, that'd be a fantastic pick.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think also one of the reasons why he's fallen so far was because he does have a pretty rocky injury history. So let me just see here. So in 2018, he had a lower body injury, and then in 2019, he kind of missed the end of the season due to injury, and then he started in 2020 he started 7 games, and then he missed the finale with an injury. So every single season he's had an injury, so that is a little concerning, but he does seem like a genetic beast. So with a 46.5 inch vertical and a broad jump of 11 feet 2 inches at pro day, that's insane. So he does have those traits where you can mold him into the player you want, but yeah, he does have some weaknesses as being a very, very raw prospect, but he'll be available in round 6 or 7. So that's definitely nice to see. So yeah, that's pretty much it for our wide receiver draft prospects video. Do you have any final thoughts?
Just kind of note from a fan perspective that there's a lot of good receivers in this draft, and just because they're not on this list does not mean that they're good. So this year is one of the years where we're talking 20 great receivers, 20 to 25 absolutely fantastic receivers. They have a lot of different traits. They can do a lot of different things. And most drafts, these guys in the late round, we didn't even talk about Jalen Durden. He's one of the fastest guys, very elusive, a great playmaker. He would go in the 3rd round in most drafts. But the reason we're not talking about him is because of all the players available. There's a lot of good receivers. So there's a ton of receivers that the Texans could go with. And I feel like any one that we talked about today would be a great choice.
Yeah, definitely. And that's pretty much it for the video. Let us know your thoughts. Did we forget a guy that you really like, or what are your thoughts on the guys that we mentioned? And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Thank y'all for watching. Peace.